Hey Res Life, welcome to Emergency Protocol Training. My name is Alyssa Morrow and I am the Assistant Director of Residence Life. And today I'll talk with you about 5 emergencies that you may need to respond to as an RA: maintenance, mental health, medical, fire, and weather emergencies. For each emergency, I'll also tell you who to call, in what order, and how to report. The purpose of this training is to equip you to make competent, safe decisions that protect you and care for the people involved. These can be stressful situations when a student reaches out to you as an RA to be the primary responder in an emergency. But if you understand the specific and practical steps that you should be taking, our hope is that these are actually some of the most straightforward situations for you to handle. Finally, you're not expected to handle any of these emergencies alone. By the end of this video, we want you to understand how to assess what's going on, to feel confident informing the right people, and be able to accurately and thoroughly report the situation so professional staff have the information that they need to be the ones who bring the situation to resolution. All right, with that, let's get into it. So there's 4 general rules that can help guide your actions as you respond to emergencies. The first is whenever emergency vehicles are called to campus, inform security and the RD on call. Whether you're involved in the situation or not, we want security and the RD on call to always know that there's an emergency on campus. So if you see an ambulance or a fire truck on campus, please call security, please call the RD on duty, and just let them know whether you have something to share about the situation or not. They can at least look into it and make sure it's being handled correctly and documented for later purposes. But we always want you to be making those 2 phone calls. The second is whenever there's an immediate emergency, call 911 and remember to indicate what kind of care you need. Is it an ambulance, police, or fire emergency? The third is never put yourself in danger. We love the dedication that RAs have and so highly value your service to the community, but we never want you to be in a dangerous situation. And finally, when in doubt, call the RD on duty. If you're not sure what to do, you can't remember the order, call the RD on duty and get somebody on the pro staff team to help you through the situation. The first emergency that you may be responding to would be a maintenance emergency. If it's urgent emergency and it's daytime, such as a toilet overflowing where water damage could be created by simply putting in a work order, please call security, who will inform facilities and get whoever's on the facilities on-call team to come over and handle the situation. If it's urgent and it's nighttime, please call security and inform the RD on call. The reason for this is during the day, students have so many resources that if it's not a safe or healthy environment for them to stay in housing because of a maintenance emergency, there's plenty of offices that they can reach out to and facilities can coach them in that. During the night, we want the RD on call to know about the situation because if a window is broken or there's another scenario that makes the environment in their housing unsafe for them to spend the night, we want the professional staff members helping to assess that and then make a plan of action. Finally, if there's a non-urgent maintenance emergency, complete a work order and the facilities team will get to it as soon as they can. The second emergency that you may be responding to is a weather emergency. If it's urgent, seek a safe place with people proximate to you. This goes back to the idea that we don't want you to be in any kind of harm, so seek a safe place and get to where you need to be. You may also call security and the RD on call to give or to gain information about what to do next. If there's a tornado, here's a couple places that we would want you to go on campus. If you are in Yetter, find a central staircase, obviously not one encased in glass toward the edge of the building, or head to the basement. If you're in Leprino, find a central staircase. If you're in Anschutz, the bookstore, commuter locker area, or back hallways are all great places to go. And if you're anywhere else on campus, bathrooms are honestly a great place to go in an emergency as well. Any place that's low, central to the building, and doesn't have windows or things that could fall down, break around you in a dangerous way. The third scenario you may be responding to is a fire emergency. If it's urgent, meaning there's present flames, get out and away from the emergency, call 911, call security, and call the RD on duty. You're going to see this sequence several times now. Call 911, call security, call the RD on duty. And the reason for that is calling 911 obviously gets the most immediate and informed help available. We want first responders on their way. The reason we call security next is because they're often the party that's helping to manage and direct where to send first responders. So if you call an ambulance, we want somebody, security ideally, to be able to flag them down and direct them to where they should be going on campus. And finally, you're calling the RD on call, who can be a support to you and to any residents involved and be aware of the situation. If a situation is non-urgent, something like burnt popcorn, or in Yetter or Rockmont specifically, the shower steam that sets off a smoke detector, call security to silence it if necessary. You might give it a couple minutes of trying to wave a cookie sheet or something near the smoke detector, but please don't detach the smoke detector. Finally, I would add, make sure that the situation is not urgent. We never want to respond to a situation really nonchalantly, thinking the smoke is because of burnt popcorn and find out we were wrong. So please be thorough in your understanding of the situation and making sure that it's truly non-urgent. The fourth scenario you might be responding to is a medical emergency. If it's life or limb threatening, meaning you may have an unconscious person or a major injury, then call 911, call security, and call the RD on call. Another step you can take while you wait is to delegate to bystanders. If people are around, you may need to ask them to move away to create some privacy, stop a crowd from growing, or to make other calls. You may have somebody call 911, have one person call security, and have another person call the RD on duty, so that all of those things are happening at once. Finally, you can locate AEDs if necessary. There are AEDs located in the security vehicle, at the Yetter desk, Leprino Grab and Go, Anschutz's desk, and at Health Services. In the event center, it's in the athletic trainer hallway, and in Beckman, it's near the double doors. A note here is that CCU policy is that students must comply with the professional recommendation. If you call an ambulance, let the RD on duty or security deal with a student's refusal to be treated. If a situation is not life or limb threatening, meaning you have a minor injury, headaches, discomfort, then there's a couple different scenarios that may play out. You might need to provide a first aid kit, which you got. Let the student ask you for that. That's not something we provide without a student prompting for it, so as to decrease our liability as a university. Another option would be to suggest urgent care, but a note here that you cannot and should not be the person transporting them. This would be a great place to ask somebody nearby, ask a roommate, ask a friend to be able to drive that person to urgent care. You can always meet the student at urgent care if you feel like your involvement needs to continue in the situation. You may need to work with a pharmacy or create a doctor's appointment. Again, you should not be transporting a resident or a student to either of those locations. And finally, another option on campus is to schedule an appointment with health services. If the student doesn't have transportation and it's a non-urgent medical need, health services can be a great resource. If there's a physical threat, say there's a fight or a present assault, get out and away from the scenario. Call 911, call security, and call the RD on duty. If there's not a life or limb threatening situation, such as somebody who looks suspicious, who's unwanted, who's invited, No need to call 911. This is usually something we can handle as a campus by calling security and calling the RD on duty. If it's not life or limb threatening, but might be a missing person, a parent calls you panicking or calls the desk nervous, then call the RD on call right away. They may be able to contact the student through other means. So we want to explore that situation and really make sure that the student is not on campus rather than creating an emergency right away. And then call security if the RD on call directs you to do so. Our final emergency is a mental health emergency. So if there's a situation that's life or limb threatening, a weapon is present, or there's other dangerous means, even if you're hearing this from a third party, better to be on the cautious side. Get out and away from the situation, even from the student. Call 911, call security, call the RD on call. If the situation is not life or limb threatening, the student's having a panic attack, they're extremely distressed or depressed, then call the RD on call and let the professional staff member handle it. In the meantime, we want you to stay with or nearby the person, using your common sense to assess what's going to be safe and healthy for you and for that party. Create some privacy. There's never been an emergency that's been made better by a crowd gathering, so create some privacy for that student. Finally, documentation in any emergency. We save this for the end because it's the exact same for every scenario. Follow emergency protocol and then submit an incident report. Even if there's a scenario where you and the RD on call and security are all there together, everyone should be submitting an incident report that we can then merge. But each party is going to have a unique perspective on what happened, and it's important that we get all of that documented and have the most accurate and thorough representation of what happened. So we have talked about how to respond to maintenance, weather, medical, and mental health emergencies. See the handout in your RA binder for some important phone numbers like security, Colorado Health Crisis Services, and the RD on duty. I would advise you to take a minute to put these numbers in your cell phone so that you have them on hand if needed. Again, I want to reiterate that our hope at the end of this training isn't that you necessarily feel comfortable responding to these situations. You may always have a pit in your stomach when there's blood at a scene, when somebody passes out, and that's perfectly normal. The hope at the end of this training is that you feel competent responding to these situations and that you can get involved who needs to be involved in order to bring that to resolution. A trauma floor of a New York City hospital has this motto: don't just do something, stand there. When you're called upon to respond to an emergency, don't just do something. Don't respond out of panic and thereby raise the chaos of the scenario. Stand there for a minute, take a deep breath, think back on your training. You don't have to resolve the situation. You just have to do the next right thing. Now that you've learned the first steps in responding to various campus emergencies, you will be equipped to contribute to a safe and responsible community. And from me and the pro staff Res Life team, thank you for your willingness to step into these situations and to lead your community. We will always have your back.